Acknowledging that people who experience the world differently deserve the same respect, the same opportunities, and support as anyone else.
Many organizations and institutions are still struggling to move beyond performative inclusivity.
Creating neuroaffirming spaces isn't just about adding accommodations.
What is neurodiversity? What makes the practice neuroaffirming? Join us at the Neurodiversity MENA podcast, where we'll share the answers to all your neurodiversity questions. Whether you're navigating neurodiversity yourself, advocating for a loved one, or looking to make your practice more neuroaffirming, or just curious to learn more, this podcast is for you. Let's shape a world where all brains can thrive.
In previous episode, we discussed every individual deserves to be respected, understood, and supported in ways that truly works for their brain. We discussed what it means to be neuroaffirming and why it's important. Today, we continue the conversation with myself, Kehdy, she, her, joining me, Shija Sapru, and Sylwia Van Baig. Welcome to Neurodiversity MENA podcast.
Yes, so just like how neuroaffirming approaches can be done at home and in therapies, it could be part of the school culture too. So when we come to neuroaffirming approaches in nurseries and school, these precious years are where neurodivergent children need a safe space to be themselves, have the flexibility to learn in unique ways, seek a path that celebrates their strengths. Now, for nurseries and schools to be neuroaffirming, there is a need for innate neurodiversity awareness programs. So what we usually see is awareness of specific diagnosis. Say like autism awareness, there's dyslexia awareness, sensory differences, and understanding to it. Now, it is important to understand that almost always there are co-occurrences, and a child may be identified as autistic, but that diagnosis alone often doesn't capture the full picture as such. So, for example, a child might also experience co-occurring conditions like OCD, anxiety, and maybe even a chronic illness. Now, in such cases, simply referring to a child as autistic can kind of overlook that complexity of their needs and experiences. So that's why it's often more meaningful to focus on what specific supports that child would need or what challenges do they face, rather than just relying solely on diagnostic labels. So understanding the child through the lens of their strengths, their difficulties, and those support needs, often, that actually offers a more an accurate and compassionate view than just what the labels can provide.
I agree. I think Karen agrees as well. And the only way to bring awareness is through regular neurodiversity awareness training, right? So it is important to emphasize that this doesn't mean simply focusing on strategies to fix behaviors, but understanding that there are different ways of being, and not just the one way to feel and respond, and understanding that there are deeper reasons to what you see on the surface. Again, often those talks are being limited to just the parent support group facilitated by schools or just within the inclusion department, but those awareness talks have to be for people beyond the inclusion department. When we say staff, it is not limited just to the inclusion teachers. It is not limited to teachers, generally speaking. We mean everyone in that educational space, including non-teaching staff, supposed to receive an inclusion neurodiversity affirming training. The more awareness, the easier it is to bring about a change in perspective. And modeling neurodiversity affirming training regularly helps all parents to embrace all children's, right? All children's attending that school, no matter what the neurotype is. So neurodivergent children use the same space as other children at school. So the more awareness we bring to that entire school, the better we adopt the culture. So can you explain more, Shia, about that? What we can do?
So being neuroaffirming embraces that development happens at its own pace. And it's not defined by any grade or curriculum standards. So having neurodivergent children meet the typical expectation, that's not neuroaffirming. So neuroaffirming approaches need to be actually embedded into the curriculum and the teaching instruction. Teachers are to set the expectations for the neurodivergent children in accordance with their individual education plan, also known as an IEP. Now, for those who don't know, an IEP is a set of goals determined usually by the inclusion department, the therapist, homeroom teacher, parents, the student themselves, to meet the additional needs of the student. Now, this is not the same as grade level goals. So hence, the grade reports are to align with the progress made over the year with respect to their IEP goals. And that is neuroaffirming. Because a typical grade report is just not helpful for the neurodivergent child or their parents. So schools often need to follow a structure and compliance, and that's very much understood. But this is often a very, rigid behavioral approach. But neurodivergent children, they need flexibility. So using collaborative and proactive solutions are neuroaffirmative approaches. And that helps in solving problems with the child instead of for the child. So some children appear to do well in school, but may be mentally and emotionally drained once they're back home. You should understand that neurodivergence does not end in schools. It does not end when you become an adult. It is for life. So no matter how many therapies you do, a neurodivergent person still has a different brain wiring and will do things differently from the neuronormative standards. So there is also another important aspect that's less considered. We should always be mindful that school staff could also be neurodivergent.
Very, very important insight. Yes, we have, many less parents think of this.
Exactly. They all think about children as neurodivergent, but the school staff also could be. So we should always consider school as an organization. And we need to emphasize this neuroaffirming organizational culture. Neuroaffirming from a workplace perspective, that is also very little spoken of. We hear of neurodiversity awareness programs, neurodiversity hiring programs, but all these require disclosure. And that comes with a huge, huge stigma. And many of them are undiagnosed too. So that's quite challenging, actually.
It is. And there's also there are too many expectations to conform to at the workplaces, like socializing, the constant need for collaborations, attending social events, micromanaging by managers. There's also the fear that, not meeting these hidden social rules that will be probably perceived as a lack of performance by the managers or the employers. So yes, mental health concerns are on the rise, whether in school or in workplaces. And as emphasized earlier, there are many adults who have masked so well through school, through even college. They do struggle when they reach workplace. And this is one of the key reasons that there has been a rise in the late identified adults or late identified neurodivergent adults. So, however, if we could implement neuroaffirming practices and approaches, as Shija said, into an organizational culture, we would be able to support better all our employees and with their different cognitive styles. Accommodations and modifications at workplace are really important, just like they are very important in schools and in colleges and at every level in our society. Because we need also the employee, teachers, everyone, we need them to thrive. For example, we're just giving an example today, the Neurodiversity MENA podcast. We are neurodiverse hosts. We do have neurotypicals among us and neurodivergents. And let's say today I'm your host. And I don't have to rely 100% on my working memory because I do struggle with my working memory. So I need my notes, I need my reminders, and I need my laptop here. And there it is. We are all using laptops because why? Why don't we have this kind of accommodation available? We need to rely less on our working memory, especially if we struggle with it. So why not? Yes, probably you wouldn't see this in other podcasts, but we have to model as well inclusivity, right? So
exactly, I'm using my laptop as well. Why not?
Why not? 100%.
And as she just said, talking about autism and talking about ADHD awareness is not beneficial anymore. I mean, it's good that we talk about it, but we have to go beyond that.
Yeah, we're not saying that it's not good to talk about it, but we need to move beyond that.
We need a broader perspective, right? And this will help people be more flexible, more accepting, and embracing neurodiversity and understanding that there is a need to be neuroaffirming. Like, it's 2025, we really need to be neuroaffirming. And neurodiversity training needs to be mandatory. I think we'll all agree that this is something we have to do.
Yeah.
And emphasis on being neuroaffirming is something that people need to speak about. And neuroaffirming practices should go beyond schools, beyond workplaces and homes, and they should extend to hospitals too. And why? Because hospitals can be so overwhelming for neurodivergent individuals due to sensory sensitivities, due to communication differences and rigid procedures. So implementing neurodiversity affirming practices helps ensure respectful care for all of us, no matter your neurotype, right?
Exactly.
Yes. And, many neurodivergent individuals are really traumatized by the hospital experiences. And I can tell you, my daughter is one of them, unfortunately. Like, take, for example, a sick child that's going for a blood test, right? This sick child, we have established that he has a biological stressor, right? Okay, this is established. This child is already struggling with a biological stressor because he's sick. The moment the child enters the hospital or he steps inside, it's the bright lights, the overwhelming smell of detergents, disinfectants, and the echoing sounds of people talking, chatting, the machines beeping, and other noises which can create immediately sensory overwhelm. I can tell you, I do have something called white coat hypertension, which is I get scared in hospital settings. And what really annoys me and overwhelms me is exactly the machines beeping. In particular, to be more specific, the blood pressuring machines and all these. And I'm just only imagining if this is happening to the child, how he can perceive this. So it's really like he can perceive it as a threat or a very it's too overwhelming and it's painful. So what do you think about this? Do you agree, Shija, that these experiences can be quite traumatic for our children?
Definitely. Because these negative experiences in the hospitals can be intense and it's traumatizing for many. So building that neuroaffirming culture, even within the hospitals and clinics, is not merely a moral obligation, it's rather a necessity there. So when healthcare professionals receive training and resources to understand and adapt to these neurological and cognitive differences, they can really enhance their ability to provide equitable healthcare to everyone.
Yes, and now since we spoke about schools, we spoke about workplaces, hospitals, and homes, what about other communities? Like, we have transportation, we have shopping, retails, malls, restaurants. So also these places can be quite overwhelming for neurodivergent individuals. And the lack of accommodation in these places can lead to exclusion as well. In one of our previous episodes, we mentioned a very good example of how we can be more accommodating. We mentioned about having some quiet hours in the malls, which can be really, really helpful for everyone, not only for neurodivergent shoppers. And when we mentioned that, we were so happy to know that there's one of the malls in UAE, shopping malls in UAE, they have implemented this strategy, the quiet hours, which is working, I'm sure, very well with the neurodivergent individuals. And we do hope that other malls and other retail businesses do follow their suit. So communication boards as well are really helpful for the non-speaking neurodivergent category. And it can be really a helpful tool, whether it's in a workplace, whether it's in a park, public places, public transport, malls, everywhere. Most importantly, also, we need staff training. As both of you mentioned earlier, that the neurodiversity training and awareness is really important to all the staff. And it's much needed also in these spaces and in these communities. We can go on and on this topic. It will definitely a whole episode dedicated to it, but what do you think about this?
I think that we can sum up that a more accessible, more inclusive and adaptable world fosters innovation, fosters creativity, and well-being for all of us. One more time, no matter neurotype, all of us, we can benefit from it,
100%.
right? So it allows for diverse perspective, reduce stigma, and ensure that everyone can thrive rather than just survive, as we do sometimes. So neuroaffirming practices aren't just a trendy buzzword. They are here to say that every brain and body is valid. When we create neuroaffirming spaces, wherever it's schools, workplaces, healthcare facilities, clinics, and even our public spaces, even our malls, we are acknowledging that people who experience the world differently deserve the same respect, the same opportunities, and support as anyone else.
True. We need our audience to know that neuroaffirming practices don't stop at our doorsteps. Whether it's designing sensory-friendly public transport, creating quiet hours in retail stores, or even ensuring that legal and government services communicate clearly, is every small change matters. And every small change build up to make a big difference. So this kind of systemic change reduces stigma everywhere because it actually tells every person that your way of experiencing the world is also valid. So of course there are challenges. This takes a lot of time, changing long-standing systems and perspectives. This isn't easy, but the rewards are immense. Let's discuss a little bit of the roadblocks, Sylwia.
Yeah, we can. Why not? But this is definitely another topic for another podcast. But much of our environments was designed like decades ago, definitely without consideration for diverse neurological needs, because how they could consider that. So established systems and routines are resistant to new ideas or can be resistant to new ideas, even when those ideas lead to a more inclusive environment. So it is a challenge, definitely, to shift mindsets that have long operated on a one-size-fits-all model. So effective design starts with listening. We have to listen to all voices, especially neurodivergent community voices. However, the voices of neurodivergent individuals are often underrepresented and misunderstood in the planning processes, resulting in solutions that miss the mark.
Conversations also around neurodiversity have increased, we gotta admit, but many organizations and institutions are still struggling to move beyond performative inclusivity. Unfortunately, performative inclusivity is a thing. So what does it mean? It's when the organization or institutions, they might adopt the language of neurodiversity, they might be talking about neurodiversity, posting about it. However, they fail to make any meaningful change to their policies or the way they cope or provide accommodations to their employee. A major challenge in applying these neuroaffirming practices is that the responsibility usually falls on the neurodivergent individual himself or their families. So instead of focusing on the support that they need, they usually are fighting on a daily basis for the bare minimum, the minimum rights. And most often, we feel like we're like a salmon fish swimming against the current, and it can be really exhausting and energy depleting.
Very much, very much. And on another note, while neurodiversity becoming very widely recognized, big places putting up neurodiversity awareness days and everything, there's also a growing risk of it being diluted or even misused for profit rather than for meaningful change. Creating neuroaffirming spaces isn't just about adding accommodations or just having inclusion departments in schools or just having neurodiversity hiring programs or specific diagnosis certifications. It's about rethinking societal norms, embracing cognitive diversity, and making sure that neurodivergent people can exist comfortably as themselves. It is a very long road, but one that's absolutely necessary for true inclusion.
Absolutely. The journey toward truly neuroaffirming spaces is complex, but it is necessary. It's not enough to talk about neurodiversity in theory or to apply it selectively when convenient. So we need a shift in the mindset that moves beyond accommodations as an afterthought. But instead, we should embrace neurodivergence as a natural and valuable part of human diversity. Let's keep the conversation going, because awareness is only the first step, but the real change happens when we have action. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Share with your family members, anybody who might like to learn, or anyone who might want to talk about it. Check our website, www.neurodiversitymena.com, and follow us on all social media handles on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.